Stitchless TV. Today on Stitchless TV, I'm going to show you how to make the most fantastic woolly beanie hat. Now, I love wearing woolly beanie hats, and what I do is I make them out of my old jumpers. Now, you know when you have a jumper and you put it in the wash and it ends up coming out about that big? Don't throw it away, they make great hats. Today in this tutorial, how to make 3 different hats. Right, what you need today to make your hat is you need an old jumper or cardigan. I'm going to use a cardigan today because I want to make use of those lovely buttons on that opening. If you're going to take it to number 2 hat today, you need some fluffy fur because we're going to make like a fluffy ball to go on the end of the hat. And for the final part of our hat, you'll need some birdcage net, elastic and a safety pin. Right, you ready for hat number 1? It's so easy, you're not going to believe it. If you're going to use a cardigan and you're going to have some button opening on your hat, have a look in the mirror. Have a look in the mirror and see where you want your buttons to be positioned on your hat and make sure the opening's going the right way. Now pay special attention to which side you're having your buttons on. And now if you have an existing hat, like me, I've got loads, then just simply lay it on top of your cardigan or your jumper and just trace around it. The reason why we do this is because we make use of that lovely finished off hem and we line it up with the bottom of the hat so that it looks really professional when it's done. Now, when you're happy with the size, basically just trace around it with some chalk. Now, if you don't have a hat and you want to know what size my hat is, I've done it so that it is about 11 inches by 10 inches high. Now remember, we've got a double hat there. Now you can change this size at any time, so don't worry about it. And then all you do, you cut it out. I really do struggle with this, but I don't like this cardigan and I can always turn it into a cardigan that I do like afterwards. So here we go, I'm just going to cut it out. So I'm just cutting along my chalked line because when I traced out the hat, I allowed it in my head a sort of centimetre seam allowance. Now obviously if you've got buttons, you can't cut right through the buttons, so make sure that you cut exactly in the middle of 2 buttons, which allows you to grab it when you do the sewing of the seam allowance. Now you can do this hat any shape you want. You can do it going off into a point. You could do it with Mickey Mouse ears, but you might need to put something inside to stiffen it out. I think my next project's going to be one with Mickey Mouse ears. I'm sure I can do something with that later. So I'll cut my hat out and then you need to put it right sides together. Now we're going to sew it all around the edge using a zigzag stitch. But I don't want you to be right up to the edge. I want you to be a centimetre, ½ an inch in, because it's much easier to do a zigzag stitch away from the edge and trim it back afterwards. Okay, so I've got my machine set to F on my mini JL. I'm going to put my hat right sides together. Now what I would say is, because we're not using any pins, you might be using pins, but I'm not, I'm going to give myself a few notches going all the way around, just so I can keep track of the pieces being together properly. Remember, we're going to be a little bit in, so I don't know, something like maybe the width of the sewing foot actually is good. Now when you start, you want to go forwards and backwards. We're on zigzag stitch, remember, and just work your way around the hat. Now remember, if you're using notches, line up all those notches as you go. So you should end up with something that looks like this. Yeah. Whoa, I really love it. Can you see the detail on it? Can you see the buttons? So when you're happy with the size and the shape of it, then it's time to trim back all the zigzags. So I'm trimming it really close to the tips of those zigzags. You should end up with something like that. Now if you want, you can give it a good old press. So that is hat number 1. Hat number 2. We get our fluffy fur. It's nice, isn't it? And we draw a circle using some chalk. And then you're going to have to get a blade and carefully cut your fur with the blade. Now the idea is, you've probably heard me say this so many times, you mustn't cut through to the pile of the fur. So that's why I'm using a blade. If you don't use a blade, then just cut, doing teeny weeny little snips so you don't actually cut the pile. So what you end up with is something like that. Now what we're going to do is, I've threaded a needle and I've threaded it twice, so I end up with 4 strands of thread just to make sure that it's really strong. Start anywhere that you want, maybe about 1 centimetre in, and I'm just going to do a running stitch going all the way round this circle. Now I've put a knot at the end of the thread, but I'm not really pulling it all the way down. So just go all the way around this circle doing a running stitch. It's exciting, isn't it? So I've gone all the way around. I've just pulled where the thread was at the beginning with the knot on. I've just sort of pulled it a little bit, and I'm pulling the other thread as well. And as you can see, it's sort of forming this lovely ball. Look at that. And now the teddy. Now, some of you might need to look away because you might be a bit alarmed by this, but often I do steal stuffing from my kids' toys to put in stand-up collars on my tops, and also fluffy pom-poms to go on hats. Now what you have to do is, you're going to have to go into the bottom of the teddy bear, so look away now. Fortunately, this teddy very kindly has not only a Velcro opening at the back, but it's got a zip which leads you to all that fantastic stuffing inside. Now I'm not going to be too greedy. I'm just going to take a little bit out just to give a bit of shape to my fluffy ball, but not so much that my son notices. I hope you weren't too disturbed by that. Right, so we go back inside our fluffy ball and we're going to stick the stuffing inside. I might just puff it up a little bit. So I'm going to stuff it all inside, making sure it's all gone in. And then we just draw up the drawstring. Now you can see why I did 4 threads, but look, oh, that'll make a brilliant key ring as well. Now when I'm happy with how tight it is, I'm going to start tying it in a knot. So I'm doing 1, 2, just do a few knots to hold it into place. It's amazing, possibilities. Oh gosh, I'm really excited now. Look at that, brooch on a hairpin. I've seen some very expensive designer brands doing their real fur, this is fake fur, faux fur, key rings like this, and they charge about £250. But we are going to use it as a pom-pom. Right, this is quite important, okay? That long thread that was attached to the drawstring, don't chop it off, okay? Because it's much stronger if it's already attached. Not the end of the world if you have, because obviously you can re-stitch another one on. Now, lucky for me, I've got a hat block from my millinery days. You could borrow a head, that's not a good idea. Or you can just put your hand up when you stitch it on. So decide where you want it to go. Okay, I've just found an easy way to do it. Forget the hat block, forget the millinery days. Turn the hat inside out, pull the hat over the pom-pom, and then just sort of keep digging your long needle in and out. And then when you get to do big stitches, just in case you need to undo it, when you get to the end, just stitch a kind of knot, tie off the ends. Look, you end up with something like that. So that's my number 2 hat with fluffy ball. And then for number 3 hat, we're going to apply some birdcage net. You only need about 60 centimetres of this birdcage net. Now, if you want, what you can do is you can gather it up and then just hand stitch it on underneath the bobble, something like that. Or you can try and think of a way, like I'm going to try and do, of making it something that you can just put on and off whenever you want. Now, I've got some of this really thin elastic because I don't want the net to be permanently on there. So I'm basically just weaving it in and out of the holes in the net. And then you draw up all the elastic and tie it at the back, just so you can see what the fit is supposed to be. Now, what I would say is that I really had to push the elastic right up into the groove of where I joined the bobble hat to there. And then when you've done that and you know what size it is, then it's probably safe to take it off very carefully, and you know that that's the size that it needs to be, so then it's safe for you to stitch it. So I would do a straight stitch going across there. So I've stitched it, it looks like a little dolly skirt, doesn't it? And then hopefully it will stretch. It will stretch over the bobble, but you really want to get it so it just goes right in the groove of where you stitch the bobble on, because otherwise it changes the shape. Now, I think that that is a pretty classy hat, and it would also look good when you pull back the net. We have hat number 3. Thank you so much for watching Stitchless TV. Now, if you make one of these 3 hats, you know what I'm going to say. Please share it on my Facebook page, Stitchless TV Sewing Channel, or Stitchless Tree. Thanks a lot. See you again soon. Bye.